Hey guys, John here. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to get an amazing guitar tone every single time. Now, these principles are going to apply primarily to a recording or playing at home context, but you can also apply some of these principles to playing live. However, some of these things will be out of your hands in a live context because you'll be working with people like sound engineers, etc. Should just keep that in mind. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons down below and the hype button if it's available to you. And also feel free to check out my affiliate links for Tomon and Sweetwater. If you purchase something there, you get to support the channel at no additional cost. And check out my website, sonicdrivestudio.com, where I sell IR packs, capture packs, and all that good stuff. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get to the good stuff. So in this video, I want to talk about the signal chain of a guitar tone, okay? Starting with the guitar, the amplifier, the speaker, etc. And my goal basically always is to get a great guitar tone without having to use EQ at the end of the chain to sort of fix or enhance things. And I'm going to demonstrate all of this with my own signal chain, but what it basically comes down to is that you want to get the guitar tone right as close to the source as possible. But there are multiple levels to it that we're all going to discuss. Now, before we get to the really fun stuff, which is the amplifier and the speaker, etc., we need to talk about the guitar, which of course is the source. And even more important, we need to talk about your playing, okay? Because no signal chain, no amplifier or guitar is going to sound great if you're not playing it right, with the right intention. If you're like bending the strings and you play a chord out of tune, that performance is never going to sound good, okay? No matter how good your amplifier is. So, of course, you need to practice your instrument and make sure that you play it well with the right intention, with the right picking power, not too hard, not too soft, because if you play chords too soft, for example, it's not going to sound as powerful as... So all of that comes into play here, of course. If the playing isn't good, your tone isn't going to be good, okay? So that's very important. I don't want to focus too much on that in this video because this video isn't really about playing. It's more about the gear and the signal chain, but it is very important to highlight, okay? So practice makes perfect. Practice your guitar, gain experience. Try to record yourself. Try to double track yourself so that you can hear where the imperfections are. And that way it's much easier to hear what you need to work on. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the guitar. I'm holding a really nice guitar. This is the Infinia series. It's a fancy guitar. This is not an affordable guitar, but of course you can get amazing tones with affordable guitars as well. This is just what I'm choosing for this example. Now, for me personally, I think and I feel that the wood of a guitar makes a big difference in how we sound and how we perform on the guitar. I've played a bunch of dead sounding guitars in my life, and those were never inspiring to play. The sustain just wasn't right, the resonance wasn't right. So all the guitars that I currently have feel and resonate good in the hands. So to me personally, good sounding wood, whatever you use, make sure that they resonate well and that they sound good acoustically. I know not everybody is going to agree with this, but this is my video, and I personally find that to be very important. Setup also comes into play here. If your guitar isn't set up well, if your strings are set too low, for example, you might get a dead sound or dead sounding frets. If your action is too high, the sound might be a bit too thick and not bright enough. Sometimes it can be good for a guitar tone if the strings are rattling a little bit against the frets. That's also personal preference. But generally, a nice action that feels comfortable for you is important in order for you to get the best performance out of the guitar. So make sure that the frets are evenly leveled. Make sure it feels good in the hand. And again, that it resonates well in your hands as well, because nothing sucks more, in my opinion, than playing a dead sounding and feeling guitar. And experience this for yourself. I mean, try some other guitars. Go to a guitar store, try a bunch of guitars and listen and feel how the guitar feels in your hand. It's very important because the performance comes from us. It might matter to you how your audience perceives your tone, but at the end we are playing for ourselves. I don't know about you guys, but I started playing guitar because I wanted to experience it for myself. I didn't start playing guitar because I cared about how the audience might perceive my guitar tone. So how you experience the guitar, how it feels in your hand, how it's set up and everything is quite important. So also be sure to use good strings. I prefer Elixir strings. No, I'm not sponsored by Elixir. I wish I was, but they sound sparkly to me. They last a very long time and they feel very comfortable to play and very smooth over a longer period of time. So that's what I choose to use. Other brands of strings can definitely sound more dull, especially after a little while when they sort of start to rust and everything. Then let's talk about pickups. I personally think that pickups are definitely important for a good guitar tone. Again, just as with the tone wood thing, if you have shitty pickups in your guitar, it's not going to feel inspiring and it's going to sound and feel a little bit off. I've played guitars in the past where the pickups were either too bright and harsh or too muddy. I even played a guitar once, I owned a guitar once that had both. So it was too muddy in the low end, but too harsh up top at the same time. That wasn't good. Swapping out the pickups solved that issue. So a bad sounding set of pickups isn't going to help your guitar tone, obviously. So if you have a guitar that works for you, also make sure that the pickups work for you. Now, luckily, there is something that we can do to enhance the guitar tone. Say you're feeling that your pickups are a little bit too dark and too dull, for example. Then you can use an EQ pedal like this one from Lichtlarm Audio. This is the Amber Spyglass EQ. So if you, for example, feel that your guitar tone is a little bit too dull, you can add some top end with a pedal like this. Or you can make it a bit more tight and remove some bottom end. So this is a great way to get closer to the source and to fix your guitar tone closer to the source if you feel that there is something lacking about the tone of your guitar itself. Okay. Sometimes it's a matter of switching from active pickups to passive pickups to find the tone that you're looking for, or vice versa, okay? Because passive pickups definitely sound different than active pickups, as you probably know. And all of that just has to do with personal preference, obviously. I like to use both. I like to use guitars with passive pickups as well as with active pickups. I do think that my main preference, if I had to choose, would be passive pickups because I'm a sucker for that tone and the string definition and stuff that you get with passive pickups. Like in this guitar, I just think that this guitar sounds really nice. The pickups in this guitar are very balanced. They're not too bright, they're not too snarly, and the bottom end and the mids are nice and controlled. So this is a very versatile guitar because of that. I also have some guitars that are very aggressive and sound great for metal rhythms and stuff, but those guitars generally don't tend to work well for like clean tones. Anyway, so if your playing isn't right, your gear isn't going to save you. Your guitar isn't going to save you. If your guitar, pickups, and all the aspects that we just talked about aren't right, the amplifier isn't going to save you. So again, get it right as close to the source as possible. Okay, now we're going to talk about the amplifier, which is a very important part of the chain. Obviously, you need to find the amplifier that is right for you. Now, if you're going to expect a Mesa Boogie rectifier tone from a Fender Twin, for example, that's not going to work. So if you want to play tight and chuggy metal, you might want to choose an amplifier that has that tone inside of it, like an EVH 5150, for example, like an Engel, for example, or in this case, the AMS Avenge 20, which I reviewed recently. Check out my review if you're interested. This is a wonderful amplifier. Of course, there are more affordable options out there as well, but this is a boutique handmade amp from Belgium, and it sounds really nice, really tight and direct, but also rich and full. So it has all the good qualities sort of baked into one tone. So that's just a really balanced sound, tight and chuggy, but also rich enough to sound thick in the mix. Now, of course, the amp has a bunch of controls, EQ controls, bass, middle, treble, presence, resonance. But before we get to that, we're going to need to get another aspect of the tone right first, the speaker and the mics. Because without a proper speaker and mic setup or sound, you're not going to get a great tone out of your amplifier. Let's talk about the speaker and cabinet first. Now, I'm using an isolated 1x12 cabinet in the back of my studio there. It works really well for me. It's the Grossmann Fatbox. It allows me to play and record at various levels without disturbing people, because this is a normal house, okay? I also have this wonderful cab from Engel over here, the XXL 412 with 4 V30s. Sounds absolutely massive. I've used this in older videos, but it's a little bit less convenient for my setup. So I use my 1x12 and it sounds great. It sounds absolutely massive and I love that thing. But you can use whatever cabinet you like, okay? The same principles basically also apply to using an IR with a load box. In that case, just make sure that you use a good load box because some of them sound better than others. I did a massive comparison recently on my channel, I think last year. Definitely check that out if you want to hear the differences between various reactive loads. And then of course, you're going to need to use a good IR. Now, if you want to get my IR tones from this video and all my other videos, definitely check out my IR packs. They are available in my web store. Now, in my cabinet, I have my favorite speaker loaded up, and I've tried a bunch of different speakers. I've tried like over 35 speakers. I also did a comparison on the channel, which you can check out up here or down here, in which I compare all those speakers, and then you can sort of hear how the different speakers sound. Some of them sound more bright, others sound more dark. Some of them have like spikes at like 1 or 2K that might sound a bit unpleasant to you. I like to use my Chinese-made V30, so my Celestion Vintage 30, which is a speaker that a lot of people in rock music like to use. It's a well-known sound. It's nice and chunky. It's nice and open and bright sounding. So, you know, you can get it to sound nice and upfront and in your face, which is a sound that I personally like. I also have a more recent V30, which is made in the UK. Some people prefer that speaker because it's more rolled off in the top end. It's a bit darker sounding, but I personally like this one a lot. This one was made in China, I think in 2023, because it has all the right frequencies and it doesn't do anything that sounds off to me. It sounds great in a mix and it doesn't need additional processing if you get the mic setup right, which is what I'm going to talk about now. So my current setup is kind of funny. I use 3 mics. I use 2 SM57s placed on different sides of the speaker and an MD421 Kompakt. I started off with a single SM57, and when I started miking my cabinets, I started to do that on this Engel cab. Now you can get some great tones with a single mic if you find the right position. For me, with this 412, the bottom right speaker was the best sounding speaker because every single speaker in a 2x12 or a 4x12 is going to sound a little bit different. So you're going to need to try all the speakers and see which one sounds the best to your ears. Again, in this case, the case of this cabinet, the bottom right speaker was the best sounding one. And then I found the best position with the best balance, and that gave me a great tone with a single mic. Now with my current setup, I wanted to try different mics. And I wanted to blend a 57 with an MD421 Kompakt because they sort of complement each other well. And then I wanted to try another 57 just so I could blend between 2 different flavors of SM57. So one is placed in a bit more of a brighter spot and the other is placed in a bit more of a darker spot. But as it turned out, when I blend all 3 of them, it sounds absolutely massive and gives you a very full range of the guitar tone. So it gives you a very honest tone. Sometimes if you're using just one single mic, the frequency range is going to be a little bit more narrow, which can work out really well. But I like the fact, since I like to demonstrate amps and everything on the channel, that I get a very full range tone out of these 3 mics. So the 2 SM57s, they complement each other very nicely and they make the sound more full and smooth. And then the MD421 Kompakt sort of adds to the smooth top end and thick bottom end. So what I'm going to do now is play a simple chord and let you guys hear the 3 separate mics. We're going to start with the brighter sounding SM57 by itself. Okay, so that's the first SM57. That one is placed closer to the center of the speaker. Now we're going to listen to the other SM57, which is placed a little bit further from the center of the speaker on the opposite side of the speaker. Take a listen. Now we're going to take a listen to the MD421 Kompakt by itself. It's going to sound a bit dark and quite bassy. Okay, take a listen. So by themselves, they don't necessarily sound amazing. But when we blend all three together, we get my tone. So I really love that tone. Now the blend of the microphones isn't equal. So the MD421 Kompakt is lower because I just want a little bit of that in there. Usually the brighter SM57 is a bit louder than the other. That's my setup. As I mentioned, you can also get away with a single mic or a different mic. There are many options out there. But just make sure that the speaker is right, that you don't get a speaker with some weird spikes in it or something like that. And then that the mic position and the mic blends and the mic choice is right as well. It can be a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it to get this right. And once you get this right, you don't need to mess with it anymore. It can be a constant. You know, just as with my videos, that setup remains the same always. And I never have to worry about it because it's just always right. And whenever a tone doesn't feel right, I go to the amplifier, so closer to the source, and I tweak the EQ controls. Okay, now obviously this can be very powerful. Usually with amplifiers, amp controls, you know, make broad sweeps, if you will. So if you want a brighter tone, you either go for the treble control, or the presence control. Same applies to the low end with the bass control and the resonance control, etc. But it will be much, much easier if you get your speaker and the mics and the mic positions, etc. right. Then tweaking an amp is a breeze. It will be so easy to dial in your amp if you get the other stuff right. Same with an IR. Make sure your IR is very well balanced. Now, I personally like to use my own IRs because they work very well for me. So I have some IRs from this exact setup that you're hearing right now. So whenever I try a modeler or a preset in my modeler, I just grab an IR of that setup because I just know that it is going to work and that it's going to sound right, you know. And in the end, as a result, I never have to use post EQ to remove certain frequencies. I see this so often where people have to notch out certain harsh frequencies. I never do that, and I don't like to do that. I don't like how it sounds. To me, it sounds unnatural. Some little moves here and there, of course, it can sound fine, but I like to avoid it at all costs. Now, the only thing that I like to do with my guitar tones in the mix is remove some low end with a high pass filter, usually at around 80 Hertz, because that is just reserved for the bass guitar and the kick drum, for example. So that's all that I ever do in terms of post-processing, in terms of post-EQ, okay? Only a filter in the low end, and that's it. So if a guitar tone isn't right, I personally just go back to the amplifier and tweak the amp controls because I know that my speaker, cab, and mic setup is always good and constant. I've used it with many amps, and it always sounds good. So it's tried and true, basically. And that really works well for me. Now, this video is becoming way too long. I wanted to make this video short, but I made it way too long. I hope you got something out of this. I hope this helps getting a great guitar tone in your recording or playing at home setup. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below because I'd love to know. What did you think of my advice? Do you have any tips that you'd like to share? Let me know. Also, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons and press the hype button if it's available to you. And again, if you want to support this channel, get something in my affiliate links for Tolman and Sweetwater, or check out my website, sonigdrivestudio.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hope to see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.